I want everyone to know that these girls were absolutely beautiful. They had been friends since 6th grade. We both put them in a charter academy. They felt like they were being punished. 6th grade, they just found each other, and every day they did homework together. They came to our house together. They shared everything. They convinced us. They made a proposal to go to high school, to a regular high school. So then they went to high schools together. Then they started looking at colleges. They came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together. And in the end, they died together in the same room, in the same bed. And it's a shame, and it hurts. But the beauty of the two always being together is something that it comforts us. It lets us know that they were with their best friends in the whole world. It's like a book. It's like some kind of terrible chapter, but there's beauty in it, and we're going to get our justice. We're going to figure this stuff out. This community deserves that.
You cannot tell me this is a coincidence. Here they say, wear a crown if you need help. Wear pink in the next video if you really need help. Next video, she's wearing pink and a crown. And they say, wear leopard clothes in the next video if you need help. That's a very specific thing. And what are the odds that in the next video, she's wearing leopard print clothing?
Today's case is a difficult one. I'm talking about Becky Watts, a 16-year-old girl who was taken from the world by her own stepbrother in a sexually motivated attack. Becky had 2 older siblings. She and her biological brother, Daniel, were 2 years apart. Becky also had a stepbrother, Nathan Matthews. Becky and Nathan were much further apart in age, 10 years to be exact, and he visited the family house occasionally but did not live with them. Well, Nathan did not take to liking Becky very much. She was so much younger than him. They had nothing to do together, and he found her to be annoying. Sadly, when Becky was only 12 years old, she was diagnosed with anorexia. Becky had lost a lot of weight in a short amount of time and wouldn't touch her food at meals. To make matters worse, her stepbrother Nathan would criticize her at home. Even though Becky had almost been hospitalized because of her eating disorder, Nathan ridiculed her, telling her that she needed to lose more weight. When Becky was 15 years old, her stepmother Angie was diagnosed with MS, also known as multiple sclerosis. She loved her stepmother. The last time Angie saw Becky was on Tuesday, February 19th, 2015. Angie had left the house around 11:15 a.m. for a doctor's appointment regarding her MS treatment. Becky had gone to hang out with a friend on Wednesday, February 20th, 2015, and slept over at their house. But on Thursday the 21st, Becky didn't post anything on social media or reply to her friends' messages. Angie noticed that she still wasn't home yet, but assumed that Becky was staying over at her friend's again. However, when Friday the 22nd rolled around and Becky still had not returned home, Becky's friends were scared. She hadn't responded to any of their messages in days or posted anything. They decided to head to her house and see if she was there. When they arrived, Angie went into panic mode. She had assumed Becky was with her friends, but now that her friends were standing on her doorstep asking the same question, alarm bells started to go off. No one in Becky's family had seen or heard from her since that Tuesday. All of Becky's electronics, her phone, laptop, and tablet computer were gone, but her clothes, makeup, money, and everything else that a typical teenage girl has were left behind, untouched in her bedroom. After they checked the room and called around to other family members, Darren called the police to report her missing around 4 p.m. At that point, no one had seen or heard from Becky in almost 2 days. After a couple of hours, the police finally showed up at the house and began questioning the family and friends who were there. That's when Nathan's girlfriend, Shauna, said that she believed Becky was in the house on that Thursday. She never saw her, but heard movement in the house while she was there and assumed it was Becky grabbing something and slamming the door as she left. On February 22nd, the Avon and Somerset police started asking around for information on Becky's whereabouts. The very next day, Darren and Becky's grandmother held a press conference hoping to get the word out. Police, as well as volunteers, started looking in nearby neighborhoods, parks, and nature reserves. There were no leads, so they were looking everywhere they could. The authorities checked back in with Becky's friends and family. They wanted to make sure everyone's story added up. That's when they met back up with Shauna and Nathan, the last people to have seen, or I guess heard, Becky on Thursday. The glaring issue was Shauna and Nathan did not seem eager to talk to the police in the slightest. Nathan talked about how much he didn't care for Becky in his interviews. He claimed that Becky was rude to his mother. Shauna and Nathan's stories matched up just a little bit too perfectly, which caused authorities to be suspicious, almost like they had planned what they were going to say. After this, the police did a forensic scan of Becky's house. The authorities discovered red stains and fingerprints from 3 different heights in Becky's doorway. On February 28th, both Nathan and Shauna were arrested at their home in connection to Becky's disappearance, and on March 2nd, they were re-arrested on suspicion of murder. While the two of them were in custody, investigators got to work searching their home. When they got inside, the team could barely move around. Inside was a hoarding situation. It was covered floor to ceiling in boxes and random junk, and it was difficult to navigate. The police then went upstairs to search and finally made it into the upstairs bathroom. They find the bathtub and shower sparkling, shiny, and completely untouched. The one thing in the entire house that wasn't dirty. If that wasn't suspicious enough, the police found receipts from a hardware store dated the exact day that Becky went missing. Listed on the receipt were a circular saw, gloves, goggles, and face masks. On March 3rd, sadly, Becky's body was found dismembered in bags and boxes. On March 4th, Nathan was charged with murder. A funeral was held for Becky on April 17, 2015, at St. Ambrose Church in Whitehall, Bristol. She was just 16 years old. The prosecutors believed that Becky had been suffocated by Nathan during a motivated kidnapping plan, in which Shauna was involved as well. After Becky was gone, the couple took her body and stored it in the trunk of their car and went back into the family home as if nothing had happened. Hours later, the two of them drove back to their home where they spent multiple days Becky's body by knife and saw. After 3.5 hours of deliberation on November 11th, 2015, Nathan Matthews was found guilty of murder and Shauna Hoare was found guilty of manslaughter.
I have no idea why, but 2022 has cracked open so many cold cases. So many cases that have been unsolved for years and years have been solved. And we are one step closer to solving the boy in the box mystery, which is huge. This case happened in 1957, so years ago. And if you're unfamiliar with this case, a young boy was found deceased inside of a box in Philadelphia, and no one knew who he was, where he came from, and why he had to die. And I think this is probably one of the most well-known unsolved mysteries. But I can sit here today and tell you that this boy has finally been given back his identity. Now, I say this, I'm about to burst your bubble, his name has not yet been released. The reason why is because the Philadelphia Police Department are going to do a conference on this next week, and as soon as I find out, I will be sure to let you know of this boy's identity and if they have any leads that could lead to an arrest, if they're still alive, which is highly unlikely at this point. This is one of the cases as well that everyone was convinced was never going to get solved. People were starting to give up hope, but through DNA testing, he has been given his identity back. And as soon as updates come out, I will be sure to let you know. This was one of the first cases I covered, so if you are unfamiliar with this case, I will give you a bit of a recap. So this takes place in February 1957, where a small boy was found in a cardboard box, naked, wrapped in a plaid blanket. And this happened in Fox Chase, Philadelphia. The boy's hair had recently been cut as clumps were still stuck to his body, and he had been malnourished, abused and neglected for a long time. He also had surgical scars, which is why it's crazy how he was unidentified. The boy's fingerprints were taken, however, a match never came back. Sketches were done of the boy as well, but nothing ever came of those. It was to the point where investigators were so baffled how nobody knew who this boy was that they even released photos of his body, which are available online if you are curious. But absolutely no one came forward. People even theorised that maybe in life the boy was disguised as a girl, which is why no one recognised him. A male blue cap, like a cap that belonged to a man, and a child's scarf was also found near the scene, however these leads led to nothing, as well as a white handkerchief with a G embroidered in the corner, but once again, nothing. But in 2002, there was a lead where a woman named Martha came forward, and Martha said that her mother purchased the boy, and she then added that the boy was abused throughout his whole life, and the reason why he was killed was because he threw up in the bathtub after being made to eat baked beans, which apparently sent Martha's mother over the edge, which led her to kill him. But Martha did have a history of mental illness, which I think is why the police didn't take this lead seriously. But his identity has been given back to him, so hopefully we will find out if this theory led to anywhere or if this led to anything. But it is important to say that when the boy was found, his fingers were actually water wrinkled, which means that if he did die in the bath, or, you know, he was in the bath when he threw up, that is a lead, which could explain why the hair was stuck to his body if he was wet. He was known as America's Unknown Child, and now he will no longer have that title, which is so bittersweet. It's so bittersweet. But that is a very, very brief rundown of the case. If you are interested, I recommend you go and do your own research, but yeah.
So when I lose myself.
Weird Crime Facts, Part 54. In 2007, Nicolas Cage bought a Tyrannosaurus skull for $276,000 after winning a bidding war with Leonardo DiCaprio. But upon later finding out that the skull had been stolen from Mongolia, Cage immediately turned it over to authorities. While in prison, Unabomber Ted Kaczynski received an invite to the 50-year reunion of his graduating class at Harvard. He RSVP'd, listing his occupation as prisoner and his 8 life sentences as awards. In 1979, the FBI formed a fake company which attempted to bribe members of Congress. About 25% of them accepted the bribe and were convicted. In 2007, a thief drove a $300,000 Porsche through the glass window of a luxury car showroom. After running out of gas almost immediately, he abandoned the car nearby. But the thief held on to the keys, brought a can of gas to the police station, and stole the car again.